Hi everyone, I'm Lady Teddy. I'm going to be reading to you guys from Magium, which is a text-based choose-your-own-adventure story game app that is free, and it's on both Android and iOS, and it's really, really good, so I highly recommend you all try and read it for yourselves. There's a lot of different playthroughs that you're able to do, so if you guys are interested in the story, I highly recommend you download the game for yourself. If you don't want to download the game, but you do want to know what's going on, all of my previous readings are on YouTube in a Magium playlist, which you can do !Magium to get, because I finally set that up. And if anyone has any questions about what's going on, feel free to ask. I know it is in the middle of the story. So yeah, currently we are doing a smart, good playthrough. It is a choose your own adventure, so you guys are able to help me make decisions. The way I do it is, if we get to a decision and it's smart or good, I will generally make the decision for us, but if it's just conversational or directional, I will allow you guys to participate. So what I'll do is I'll read out what the options are, and then I will give everyone about a minute. If no one participates because they just want to sleep or relax, that is totally fine. I will make a decision for us once the minute is up. If people do, when you're gonna fall asleep, that's totally fine. That's part of why I do this. People said that they were falling asleep to my stream anyways, so here we are. If people do want to participate, I will go with what the majority of the chat says. So, yeah. Without further ado, I guess we can, I'll allow you guys to participate. Name of Urkimus' sex tape. That sounds about right. Oh, I also have all sound alerts turned off right now, so I wouldn't recommend redeeming any of those, because this is supposed to be relaxing. No one offers up, though? Yeah. That sounds accurate to you, Urkimus. Okay. So, currently we are on part 4 of chapter 11 of book 2. What's going on right now is they were just... It's so difficult to explain what's going on right now. So their friend Rose died and then was possessed, like revived, sort of, possessed with a revenant, which is a spirit that is not Rose but has all of Rose's memories, because Rose was given the abilities of a time weaver, meaning that at some point she's going to go around and some other being is going to speak through her and give this prophecy to all of the people who might be able to stop the tragedy from happening. This has finally happened. It's the Revenant now. Revenant Rose has given that prophecy. The spirit, who is the god of time, decided to hijack this whole ritual of giving off the prophecy, and is now forcing them to go through these god-awful trials because he feeds on negative emotions and energy. So they had to go back in time and relive all of their worst memories, or like their trials involve their worst memories. So the main character had to watch his parents die and allow it to happen, because when he tried to stop it from happening, he realized that's not what the trial wanted, because it kept resetting. And then once he got out of his trial, Araka, the spirit, took them into, like, put them back into the Magium to watch other people's trials without them knowing. She made a mistake. The Magium got mad. They were almost erased from existence. They escaped. Now they're outside talking to the Revenant. Everyone wanted to kill the Revenant, and she was like, that literally cannot happen until the prophecy is over and completed with. The Magium will just keep reversing time, sorry. And then, yeah. You're sad about the gushers. You know that I turn off all sound alerts during Magium. It's supposed to be relaxing. Okay. Oh, yeah. And I can't do fake laughter to save my life, so whenever Araka starts laughing, I turn on the echo effect because we've decided that that's better. The time freezing spell around us was cast without my control, so I can't undo it, the Revenant says. I'm not sure if you realized this, but the time got frozen long before I first appeared in front of you. Up until recently, your group has also been frozen in time along with the rest of the world, while I've been in that trance walking for days, until I managed to reach you. The time only got unfrozen for you when I was close enough to deliver the prophecy. Hold on a second, Araka says. You're saying that this is the first group you've visited since you've entered your trance? Yes, I'm quite certain of it, the Revenant says. Why do you ask? Araka laughs all of a sudden. So you're telling me that these little chumps are the ones who are the most likely to influence the prophecy? That's it. Pack up your bags, everyone. This continent is doomed. What is she talking about? Darren asks Melindra as Araka is still laughing in the background. Why would we be the most likely to influence the prophecy? Are there others who will be receiving the same prophecy after us? I feel like my laughter actually improved a little bit there. Still not great, but I'm getting better. Yes, Melindra says. You are only the first group to be visited by the Time Weaver. Once the God of Time is done with his ritual, you will be frozen in time once more, and then the prophecy and the ritual will be repeated for the other groups of people as well. Not only that, but this same prophecy will be delivered to you and the others at least 2 more times before the events prophesied will come to pass. In order to announce you if any progress has been made towards your goal of averting the disaster. The reason why Araka said that you were the most likely ones to influence the prophecy is because the Time Weavers always visit their targets in order of priority, which means that your group may have the most decisive role in the events to come, depending on your choices. Huh, Darren says. I'm not sure if I should be feeling reassured that we will be having a good chance of stopping the calamity, or worried that we'll likely be right in the middle of it when it happens. Either way, we shouldn't be thinking about that now. What we should be focusing on is trying to interrupt the ritual. If the Revenant doesn't have any more ideas, then maybe it's time to take matters into our own hands. Hadrick, come with me for a second. I want you to help me take a look around and see if we can spot something out of the ordinary. All right, Hadrick says. Lead the way. Did you really walk all the way here without any rest? Flower asks the Revenant, worried, as Darren and Hadrick are moving away from us. Aren't you tired? Don't you need to eat? I am undead, so I require neither food nor rest, the Revenant says in her usual expressionless tone. However, even if that were not the case, the trance that I was in earlier would have shielded me from any such problems. When you are inside the trance, your body is practically put into a magical stasis of sorts, and all of your bodily functions are put on hold until you are out of that stasis. If it weren't for the god of time intervening in the middle of these prophecies, I probably wouldn't even have remembered any of this has happened. Oh, I see, Flower says, not being sure how to interpret the Revenant's complete lack of emotion when talking to her. Sorry to have bothered you. The Revenant looks at Flower, surprised, seemingly unable to understand why she apologized to her all of a sudden. For a second there, it looked as if she were about to ask what was wrong, but ultimately she decided against it. Tried to explain to Flower that the Revenant wasn't bothered by her, let them sort their problems by themselves. I feel like Goodberry would definitely do this one. If anyone would like to argue with me as to why Goodberry would not try to help, now is your chance. Otherwise, I will be going with this decision in about a minute. Looks like I'm going to be going with that first decision then. Okay. Hey, Flower, I say. Yeah? Flower says. Just so you know, the Revenant wasn't bothered by you or anything, I say. It's just the way she talks due to being an undead. You should probably ignore her tone of voice altogether if you want to avoid any more misunderstandings. Oh, Flower says, as she suddenly turns towards the Revenant. Sorry, I thought you were mad at me for asking stupid questions. I didn't mean to upset you. You did not upset me, the Revenant says, and you weren't asking stupid questions. Glad to hear it, Flower says with a smile. She then approaches the Revenant and holds out her hand to her. Friends? Flower asks her. I already said earlier that if the god of death were to order me to kill you, I would. It doesn't matter, Flower says. We can still be friends despite that fact. But only if you want to, of course. The Revenant hesitates for a second, but she slowly grabs Flower's hand and she grips it firmly as a sign of their newly formed friendship. Great, Flower says. Remember, friends always look out for each other. If you ever need my help, just call. Unless you've been ordered to kill me or something. Thank you, the Revenant says. I will remember that. After a while, Flower goes to talk to Melindra, while the rest of us remain behind, waiting in silence for the next stage of the ritual to begin. In the meantime, Darren and Hadrick are apparently still walking around, trying to see if they can find anything unusual that could help them spot a weakness in the ritual. As I look around, to see what everyone else is doing, I suddenly realized that Layla hasn't participated in any of our discussions so far, and she has barely even moved from her spot since the ritual started. At the moment, she is looking at the ground while avoiding making eye contact with any of us. Could it be that she still didn't manage to get over what happened in her first trial? Come to think of it, she was also at the beacon, so it wouldn't be too surprising if she got a similar ritual to that of Kate. That is not good. Kate might be strong enough to endure the emotional trauma caused by such a trial, but what about Layla? Maybe I should go talk to her and see how she's holding out. Layla, is everything all right? I say as I get a little closer to her. Layla looks surprised when she hears my voice. I think she has gotten used to being ignored in these situations due to her quiet nature and her generally weak sense of presence. She raises her head to look me in the eyes, and then she nods slightly in order to answer my question. I'm fine, Layla writes. Just a little shaken up, that's all. Do you want to talk about it? I ask her. Again, Layla looks at me surprised for a second, but then she smiles faintly as she writes a new text in the air in front of me. Not now, Layla writes, but maybe later. Exactly, Carrot King. Since Layla didn't really feel like talking at the moment, I decided to give her some space so she could be alone with her own thoughts. As I was going back to my original spot, I saw the Revenant displaying a bit of emotion in her eyes again as she was preparing herself to ask Kate a question. I have a question to ask, the Revenant tells Kate with hesitation in her voice. What happened with Kevin and Susie? Did you have to leave them at an orphanage? Or... No, we didn't need to do that, Kate says. We left them with Enrique. He offered to move in with the children after he found out about Rose's death, so he will be taking care of them from now on. Enrique, the Revenant says, as she seems to be recalling some distant memories. Yes, Enrique is a good man. I'm sure he will take good care of the children. Thank you. The feeling of anxiousness could be seen in the Revenant's eyes. The feeling of anxiousness that could be seen in the Revenant's eyes is now turning into one of relief. Those human emotions do not last long, however, because soon afterwards the look in her eyes turns back to the empty, expressionless gaze that she had before. Wow. It sure has been a while since we finished our first trials, Darren says, after some time. I wonder why it is taking so long for the second stage to start. I'll tell you why, Araka says. It's because you schmucks gave Selkrams so much raw material to work with in the first stage that he's now still busy converting it all into energy. What? Darren says. Your negative emotions, Araka says. That's the raw material that Selkram is using to convert into magical energy. And while you losers were busy repeating those rituals over and over, sinking into the depths of despair or cursing the god of time, you were giving him exactly what he wanted. Honestly, I think he got so much energy from you people that he might not even need the second stage from your group. I guess we'll see about that soon enough. Well, I'm happy to have been of assistance, Darren says in a dry tone. I suppose this gives us I suppose this gives us some more time to investigate the area, then. Come on, Hadrick. Let's try interacting with more of these frozen insects and trees. Maybe we can find one that isn't protected by an invisible, impenetrable shield, so we can finally cancel this damned time freezing spell. Shortly after, Darren and Hadrick begin their new patrol of the area. We hear a familiar voice screaming horrified about 100 feet away from us. When we all turn around to find out who the voice belonged to, we see Cutthroat Dave with sweat all over his face, looking around him confused as he's trying to figure out what's going on. I suddenly realize that Cutthroat Dave must have been the person watching us invisibly from afar that Araka and the God of Time were talking about earlier. With all the crazy stuff that's been going on since the prophecy started, I had completely forgotten about him. Oh, so you were our invisible stalker, Melindra says with a smirk as she casts a spell on the Cutthroat to lift him in the air. Why don't you come on over here so we can see you a little better? She then makes the air currents slowly carry Cutthroat Dave towards our position as he is struggling in vain to break himself free. Let me go, you wench, Cutthroat Dave says as he sends some of his knives to attack Melindra. Melindra uses a wind spell to effortlessly deflect the knives, and then she continues to bring the Cutthroat closer to us. This is why she's so good at those damn tongue twisters. No, I just like tongue twisters. I think they're fun. But they probably do help, because reading out loud definitely does tongue-tie me a bit. At points. Watch out, Darren says. Cutthroat Dave's knives have a life of their own. They're going to keep attacking you even if you deflect them. Oh no, Melindra says in a sarcastic tone. Whatever shall I do? She then casts a spell which surrounds each of the knives that were attacking her in their own magical air currents, making them stop and spin in mid-air indefinitely. Cutthroat Dave keeps flailing his arms and legs around in the air in hopes that he could break himself free from Melindra's spell, but eventually he reaches our position and Melindra gives him a good long look before she addresses him again. Why are you so upset, Cutthroat? Melindra says. Is it because you accidentally cancelled your invisibility spell when you panicked earlier? Or was your ritual really so terrifying that you still haven't gotten over it? How does a lowlife like you get access to such a sophisticated invisibility spell anyway? As if I'd be stupid enough to tell you where I got the elixir from, Cutthroat Dave says. I'm way too smart for you to be playing your mind games with me. You understand. Oh, so it was an elixir that made you invisible, Melindra says. Interesting. He also had an expensive teleportation scroll on him the last time we fought him, which he used to get away from us, Darren says. I wouldn't be too surprised if he also had some other magical items hidden in his pockets. Is that so? Melindra says. Let's find out what else he has then. As soon as she stops talking, Melindra casts a spell which makes a few items float right out of the Cutthroat's pockets and into her hands. In her right hand, she is now holding a small flask, which is closed with a cork and has a green liquid inside, while her left hand is holding up two furled scrolls that are likely single-use teleportation scrolls like the one that the Cutthroat had used before. You thieving whore! Cutthroat Dave shouts furiously as Melindra makes the flask float in the air in front of her while she unfurls the scrolls to take a quick look at them. "Give me back my items, or I promise that you'll end up full of holes." "You promise?" Melindra says as she stares at the cutthroat with a look of curiosity in her eyes. "I am intrigued. Do you not realize who you are threatening right now? Or has this tournament completely robbed you of your common sense?" "You think you can scare me," Cutthroat Dave says, "just because you're a Stillwater? Your friend in armor over there was hailed as a legendary mage too, but that didn't stop me from bringing him to his knees. What makes you think you're so special?" "Wait," Araka says, "the healer almost lost a fight against this weakling?" "That's one of the most hilarious things I've ever heard." "Who are you calling a weakling, you crappy piece of jewelry?" Cutthroat Dave says. He just called me jewelry. He just called me a piece of jewelry," Araka says. "This is too much. I can't take it anymore. Somebody make him shut up, or I'll end up dying of laughter." Ask Melindra if I can have Cutthroat Dave's items. Let Melindra do whatever she wants with the items. I feel like Smartberry would keep the items. If anyone would like to argue with me as to why he would not want the items, now is your chance. Otherwise, I will be making the decision for us in about a minute. Okay. "Hey, Melindra," I say, "can I have those items?" "Sure," Melindra says as she hands me the scrolls with an elixir. "Knock yourself out." The fact that she didn't think twice before giving me the items made me a little suspicious. So the first thing I did once I got to them was read to read what was written on the scrolls. As I suspected, the scrolls seemed to be tailored specifically for the cutthroat, and they can't be cast by anyone other than him. I can't say much about the elixir, but considering how Cutthroat Dave went out of his way to get scrolls that would only work for him, I wouldn't be surprised if this green liquid acted in a similar manner. Melindra gives me a smirk when she sees that I'm done reading the scrolls. "As you've probably figured out by now, those scrolls are completely useless to me, or completely useless to us," Melindra tells me. "The elixir might work, but I personally wouldn't risk it. Who knows what nasty side effects it might have if it were used by the wrong person." "Well, it's still better than nothing," I say. "I'll keep it for now." I then put the flask inside my backpack and I tear the teleportation scrolls into pieces to make sure that the cutthroat won't be able to use them anymore. "You're all going to pay for this," the Cutthroat Dave says, as he is looking at us furiously. You think you can get away with messing with Cutthroat Dave and get away with it? You're looking at the future winner of this tournament. You have no idea just how big of a mistake you've just made. The future winner of the tournament? Araka says. Damn, Barry, it looks like you've found yourself some worthy competition. Shut up, I tell her. I think I've heard enough, Kate says as she sends 3 ice cones straight for the Cutthroat's face. Cutthroat Dave reacts almost instantly, and he sends one of the knives that he had in his belt to deflect the ice cones at the very last second. Whoa there, Cutthroat Dave says, as he's now sweating a little. Is attacking a man while he's defenseless the only thing you can do? How about we make this a fair fight instead of you all ganging up on me like some street thugs? Kate ignores the Cutthroat's request as she is now preparing some extra ice cones to make sure that he can't deflect them anymore. Wait, the Revenant says. Don't kill him. Abtots, what are the stakes? If it's Sammy, then absolutely not. Not worth it. Why shouldn't I? Kate says. He could still be useful in the upcoming ritual, the Revenant says. Let me ask him a few questions. Then Abtots, no duel. Not worth it. Not worth the risk. I never leave love to chance. Ask your questions, Kate says, but I'm not guaranteeing that I'll leave him alive afterwards. He might do more harm than good in the ritual, after all. The Revenant nods as she approaches the Cutthroat so she can look directly in his eyes. Tell me, Cutthroat, the Revenant says, why were you following this group, invisibly? Did someone send you here to spy on them? Surprisingly lovely. My devotion to my wife? Did you expect anything less? My wifey has good taste. Cutthroat Dave don't work for no one, the Cutthroat says in disgust. I was following them invisibly because I couldn't manage to get close enough to their camp this morning to slit their throats in their sleep. Why not? The Revenant asks. 'Cause the elixir I took didn't mask my aura completely, so I couldn't risk it, Cutthroat Dave says. I didn't think these bastards would have guards around their tents at all times. Since I'd already wasted my elixir for nothing, I figured I may as well follow them around until its effects were over, in hopes that they'd leave their guards down at some point. You have a harem. I was hoping for some kind of neglect that I could leverage to your advantage. Turns out that you're disgustingly wholesome. Damn you to hell for being wholesome. Wow. Look at me, I really suck, don't I? And for the record, I'm divorcing Urkamus. Sammy is the only woman for me. But how did you find them in the first place? The Revenant says. Who led you to their camp? Woman, are you daft? The Cutthroat Dave says. I told you that I don't work for no one. I found them by accident. Nobody led me here. Now you tell your whore friend to put me down so we can have ourselves a real fight. Just as the Cutthroat was finishing his sentence, a bright white light covers our area, and this time I can feel my whole body being transported somewhere else, instead of only my consciousness. Erkemis does have a gracefully lovely beard. Well, I'm divorcing him for a reason. If you want Erkemis, shoot your shot. I'm just saying, it's a little weird that you're so obsessed with my wives. Sweet dreams, Erkemis. Thank you for hanging out. Lovely having you here. When the light fades away, we all find ourselves in the middle of a city, which is unusual, to say the least. The first thing that catches my attention is that there is one very large black tower in every corner of the city, and on top of each of these 4 towers, there is an incredible amount of magical energy that can be seen even with the naked eye. The energy has a purple color and is moving wildly in every direction, as if it were trying to escape its prison. On each side of these 1,000-foot tall towers, there are big floating platforms that keep going up and down at a slow speed, and they seem to be carrying hundreds of people towards the levels of the towers that they need to reach. Leaving these strange, tall buildings aside, what is even more peculiar is what is happening directly above us. Currently, there are hundreds of metal, horseless carriages flying through the air, with people inside them. While these carriages are flying around, there are large holographic screens floating above us, picturing a man that is relaying the same message over and over in the common language. The holographic screen looks just like the ones that were created by Golmik's illusion casting device, when he announced our first objectives. The message that keeps getting repeated is, all non-Lasathi citizens are to present themselves to the military reserve area immediately. We are under attack. I repeat, we are under attack. Ancient languages check successful, level 4. The flying carriages are moving in a frenzy, while people around us are hurrying in the same direction, which I'm guessing is the way to the military reserve area. As if this wasn't already unsettling enough, I can't help but notice that the whole city is filled to the brim with dark blue banners, having a hawk holding a sun in its talons drawn on each of them. Very shortly after being transported here, I also heard someone talking very loudly in the Lasathi language through a magical voice magnifier, and the message she was transmitting was, "Please stay clear of the Eastern District. The Lasathi High Council are having an important meeting in the Great Hall and do not want to be disturbed." I'm not really sure what kind of an attacker could make a whole city panic like this, but something tells me we are about to find out very soon. As I look around, I suddenly notice that my hearing is no longer as good as it was before we were brought to this place. I quickly check my stat device in order to confirm my suspicions, and I see that the 3 extra levels of hearing granted to me by the secret code have indeed been lost. Yup. I can't believe this. Melindra says, as she looks at the black towers in the distance. Those towers coated in ceridium dust look exactly like the kind of buildings the Lasathi Empire used to have thousands of years ago. I've only read about them in books. Even 600 years ago, before the Lasathi Empire fell, you would have to see something like this in their cities. Or you would not see something like this in their cities. The closest I've ever come to seeing anything resembling these towers was in Allendor, where they are still preserving old relics from the Lasathi Empire's days of glories. But still, they were only ruins. For these towers to be in such good condition, we would need to have been sent back to when the Lasathi Empire was at its very peak. 4,000 or even 5,000 years ago. What is the time god thinking? Never mind the history lesson. Any idea who might be attacking the city? Should I take it we are still in Varathia then? How do these towers work exactly? I feel like Smartberry knows that we're going to figure this out eventually, so I don't think Smartberry would ask this one. I feel like, honestly, Smartberry would ask this one. So this is what I'm leaning towards. But if anyone would like to weigh in and pick a different, has a different question to ask, now is your chance. Otherwise, I'm going to be making a decision for us in about a minute. Okay. How do these towers work exactly? From what I know, Melindra says, the energy from these towers was supposedly charged by the mages from the city, who worked voluntarily every day to keep the energy alive, and who would receive monthly payments from the Empire as a reward for their contributions to their society. This energy would then be used to power up these flying vehicles that you see above us, and also other technologically advanced devices that would make life easier for every citizen. What the hell are you two talking about? Oh. What the hell are you two talking about? Cutthroat Dave says, as he now seems to no longer be constrained by Melindra's air currents, and he is looking at all the flying carriages with apprehension in his eyes. What is this place? It is a city from the old Lasathi Empire, Melindra says. Haven't you been paying attention? So, Abtots, I don't know if you're listening, but Hadrick is supposed to have a Scottish accent, I can tell, and I cannot do a Scottish accent. And now that you're here, I feel like that should be acknowledged again, because every now and then I'll acknowledge it, that he's supposed to have a Scottish accent, or something similar. So if we've been sent to the past again, does this mean that there are some events we have to repeat? Hadrick asks. No, this is a different type of ritual. Araka says. Can't you see that you've been transported here with your bodies instead of just your consciousness? You're saying that this time we're allowed to change something that happened in the past? Darren says. No, that's not what I'm saying, Araka says. The only way you can change the past is through a time reversal spell. This is obviously not our world. Neither of you were here 5,000 years ago. We are in a parallel world similar to ours where the future hasn't happened yet. No matter what we change here, it won't affect our reality. So, but then what is the purpose of this trial? Darren says. No idea, Araka says, but I do think I've managed to figure out why we've been sent here, of all places. What do you mean? Aluna says. Remember how in every one of the rituals so far, Selkram has sent you to relive the events from your own past? Araka says. Well, like I said before, neither of you lived anywhere near long enough to have experienced these current events. So, by process of elimination, the past we are now exploring is most likely mine. Not long after Araka is done talking, the whole sky gradually darkens as a powerful, sinister aura envelops the area above us. The flying metal vehicles are now falling, one by one, and crashing into the buildings below, while a woman in her late 30s is emerging from the dark clouds and is descending towards us. The robes she is wearing are similar to the traditional wizard robes that used to be worn hundreds of years ago, back when the mages were still being called wizards. And that only... The robes she is wearing are similar to the traditional wizard robes that used to be worn hundreds of years ago, back when mages were still being called wizards, and that only traditionalist mages like Azarius are still wearing nowadays. As the woman gets closer to us, I see that her eyes are pitch black, and that she has a very familiar-looking, malicious grin on her face. Well, 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 the woman says as she looks towards Araka's amulet. It looks like Selkram sent me a little present. You're coming from the future, I presume? Let me check my future self's aura for a second. Wow. So you're 5,000 years older than me, huh? I guess I must have really gotten senile with old age if I managed to get myself captured in an amulet by a glorified circus troupe. Seriously, what even are you people? A little girl dressed like a clown, a giant masquerading as a dwarf, a woman dressed in pajamas. It's like you're trying to compete with the most ridiculous... It's like you're trying to compete for the most ridiculously dressed wizard group of the century. I'm not dressed as like a clown, Flower shouts all of a sudden. These are acrobat clothes. Acrobat clothes. How hard is it to tell the difference? The woman laughs as her voice temporarily turns into 3 female voices that Araka always lets out when she loses control of the way she speaks. Acrobat clothes, she says. Oh man, this would be so much funnier if it weren't so sad at the same time. Is this really where I'll end up in 5,000 years? Trapped in an amulet while I'm forced to play the role of some clown girl's pet? What kind of cruel joke has my destiny played on me? Shut up, you moron, the Araka from the amulet says. This is your one chance to fix your pathetic past. I mean your future. Don't blow it. Let me see. Set me free from this amulet and we can take over... And we can make all of those self-proclaimed gods pay for banishing us to this realm. They might have beaten us alone, but together we'll be unstoppable. We will kill every single one of the gods from this cheap copy of a world, and then we'll go back to my real world and kill them all over again. Just break this amulet and we will make a team so unbelievably powerful that even the Magium will tremble before us. The Magium, the Araka in the woman's body says, You're treating the Magium as if it were some sort of person now. What kind of an idiot have I turned into over these years? Are you going to set me free or not? The Araka in the amulet shouts. No, the Araka from the past says, now adopting a more serious tone. I am not going to free you. You might have forgotten this due to your old age. But I haven't yet grown as senile as you. Do you seriously expect me to believe that once you get out of that amulet, you will seek to ally yourself with me? Don't make me laugh. I know what you're thinking. As soon as you get out of there, the first thing you'll do is attack me, since I am by far the biggest threat to your existence. And with all the knowledge you've been amassing in those 5,000 years, you may well end up beating me. Why would I take the risk? It's so much easier for me to leave you inside that amulet to rot until I can find a way to get rid of you for good. You should blame yourself for having been stupid enough to get trapped in an amulet in the first place. I assure you that I will not be making that same mistake any time soon. Oh, yeah? The Araka from the present says, furiously. You want me to tell you what your future holds, you arrogant buffoon? I'll tell you what's going to happen. You're going to get trapped in a mountain for thousands of years, and all of your plans of vengeance will go down the drain. You're going to be even more useless than I am right now. At least, in my current form, I can cast a few spells, but you won't be able to do anything for thousands of years, and you deserve everything that's coming to you. I hope you'll have fun in your new prison, you stubborn piece of trash. Thank you, Phoenix Fire Critic. I appreciate it. Peace be with you as well. A mountain, you say? Pastor Aka says with a grin. How informative. So all I need to do in order to avoid your past mistakes is to stay clear. Is to stay clear of any mountains, then. Perhaps you're not so useless after all. Maybe I should snatch you away from that girl's neck and make you into a pet of my own, so that you can tell me everything you've learned during your extra 5,000 years of life. You wish you could do that, you worthless copy of a banshee, President Araka says. When I'll be done with you, there won't be a single speck of dust left from your carcass. How about you keep quiet for a second while I quickly annihilate all of your friends? Pastor Eka says. We'll have plenty of time to talk afterwards when I'll be wearing you as a piece of jewelry around my neck. Attack Pastor Eka with my dagger, try to stall for time in the hopes that the others can come up with a plan. I'm saving here so we can redo whatever the fuck we do. What would you guys like to do? Now is your chance to participate. Hello, Cobra Kyrie, welcome in. Think the Library of Babel might be up my alley, game of puzzles and stealth. I'll add it to my list. Video game for PC and Switch. Well, I have a PC, so that's good. Is it on Steam? Possibly on Steam, unknown. Okay, good to know. And you said try to stall for time. Okay. That is the smart option. Are you sure you want to kill us? I say. Think about it for a second. The Araka from our present time probably won't give you any more information than she already did, but the rest of us have been traveling with her for a long while. We know some of her secrets. We could trade you that information in exchange for our freedom. You've got nerves of steel trying to barter with me. I'll give you that, the Pastor Eka says with her malicious grin back on her face. But what kind of information could you possibly give me that? As she was talking, Pastor Eka suddenly stops mid-sentence. Because she apparently got frozen in time along with everyone who wasn't part of our group. I managed to freeze her, the Revenant says, as she seems to be having a headache, but I'm not sure how much I can maintain my concentration. We need to move away from here to find some shelter. Let's see if we can find some buildings coated by ceridium dust nearby, Melindra says. Magical sense doesn't work through ceridium, so we should be able to hide in here for a while. You're the only... Yeah, it's a quiet stream today, but that's okay. Thank you for participating. I appreciate it. Makes it more interesting. We all rush out of the area where we were first transported to, and we look around us trying to find a house with black dust on its walls. I'm so pissed off right now, President Araka says as we run through the alleys. If only I had a way of getting out of this amulet, I would rip that fake version of myself in half and throw her to the dogs. Araka, aren't there any houses in the vicinity that have any walls you can't see through with your magical sense? Aluna says. Huh, Araka says, looking as if she's only now realizing what we were trying to do. Welcome in, Slim. Oh, right, let me check. Yeah, there is one, but it's pretty far from here. Take a left at the next crossroads and go straight ahead. I'll tell you when to stop. Wouldn't it be faster for Melindra to fly us all the way there? I say as we keep running. No offense, Kate says, but I think that we can run faster than Melindra can carry us with her air currents. There aren't that many obstacles anyway, Araka says. It's just a long way until we get there. Where did that cutthroat run off to? Darren says. He never came with us, Araka says. He ran in the opposite direction as soon as time was frozen. That's probably the smart move. My past self will most likely be coming after us, after all. We keep running. As we keep running, the Revenant suddenly gets a strong headache, which makes her lose control over her time-freezing spell. Once the time gets unfrozen, it unfortunately takes past Araka no longer than 3 seconds to teleport herself right in front of us and to block our path. Such a shame, past Araka says. You were so close to escaping. It's too bad that your Time Weaver couldn't hold on to the spell for just a little longer. Frankly, I'm surprised that she held out as much as she did. After all, the first thing I did when I arrived earlier was to cast a spell that prevented everyone in the area from using time powers. I'm guessing that she must have had a protection from dizziness of some sort. Well, no matter. In the end, it didn't help you in any way. The Time Weaver is too tired to concentrate now, so all you can do is... An avalanche of flames coming from the right engulfs Araka just as she was finishing her speech, and we are forced to step back because even the air surrounding those flames feels like it could melt off our skin. Araka was clearly caught unaware, and she's trying to push the flames with her hands as she's struggling to keep hold of her magical shield. The whole ground below her is quickly turning into lava, and the Banshee looks like she's getting slowly pushed back by the incredible... While the Banshee looks like she is slowly getting pushed back by the incredible force of the magical flames that just keep on pouring. Eventually, she is forced to teleport away, 50 feet above her current location, which causes the flames to immediately stop. Then, completely out of the blue, a familiar-looking dragon made out of magma appears right next to us, and in the next second we find ourselves being teleported away from the city streets along with him. As we take a quick look around to see where the dragon Tyrath transported us, we realize that we are now situated in a large building with a very high ceiling and from the looks of it, the whole construct surrounding us has been coated with ceridium dust. The inside of the building looks like a big closed amphitheater with rising rows of seats, and the illumination seems to be coming from magical devices rather than torches. Judging by the size of the amphitheater, I'd say that it could probably fit 1,000 people or more in those seats, although currently there are only a few hundred of them sitting in the chairs. While they're murmuring and looking towards us, if I were to take a guess, based on the important-looking clothing of these individuals, I'd wager that these must be the people ruling the city, who were in an emergency meeting discussing about the city being attacked before we interrupted them. Phoenix Fire Critic, thank you. Very much appreciated. Meanwhile, in the middle of the amphitheater, where the dragon and our group are currently standing, there are also quite a few hundred human mages gathered, all dressed in traditional wizard clothing, along with a few women who are dressed in wizard robes as well. A particularly old man with a long white beard, who seems to be the person presiding over the meeting, is now addressing Tyrath from an elevated platform, speaking to him in a tone that is somehow both polite and condescending at the same time. Thank you for the hydrate. Who are these strangely dressed wizards that you've brought before the Lasathi High Council, King of all dragons? The old man says, I thought we'd made it clear that this meeting was supposed to be held behind closed doors. When we invited you into our great hall, we did not give you permission to bring guests as well. Nobody asked for permission, you old fool, Tyrath says in disgust. You know full well that I wouldn't be here if the situation weren't as dire as it was. This powerful female wizard named Araka, who claims to have come from another plane of existence, is a threat to us all. I fought her soon after she first made her appearance yesterday, and I can assure you that she's not an enemy to be trifled with. My whole army of dragons was completely powerless before her. Only I was powerful enough to hold her back, and not enough to actually defeat her. You should already have an idea of the extent of her powers now that she has attacked your city as well. If you know how dire the situation is, then why do you bring uninvited guests into the middle of this very important meeting? The old Lasathi says. What benefit could they possibly bring us in such circumstances? These people are not what they seem, Tyrath says. I overheard Araka saying that one of them was a time weaver while I was making my way towards this hall. And if you look closely, well, you will see that the aura coming from the amulet around the little girl's neck is eerily similar to that of Araka. So similar, in fact, that I would be tempted to say that the two of them are somehow the same person. If the Araka we know was about to kill them all before I intervened, surely even someone as limited as you could see the advantage in having these people as our allies. But at what cost? Another Lasathi from the High Council says as he raises himself from his seat. I've only just received word from my men through the transceiver. And they've told me that your downpour of flames from earlier has caused deaths of more than 100 civilians. Was it worth it to kill so many innocent people just to save this small group? Even if my flames hadn't killed them, they would have most certainly gotten killed by Araka a few moments later, Tyreth says. Your civilians were practically already dead from the moment she stepped foot in that area. There were hundreds of your flying metal vehicles crashing into nearby houses when I arrived, and Araka hadn't even started her rampage yet. Every moment wasted arguing here will mean the death of 100 more of your civilians until we manage to put together a plan of attack that has some realistic chance of success. I will have to agree with Tyreth that arguing any further will get us nowhere, the old Lisathi says. Please sit down. Please sit down, Councilman Relazar? We're going with Relazar. Please sit down, Councilman Relazar. We will be interrogating this strange group of wizards shortly, and we will soon find out whether the deaths of our fellow countrymen were worth it or not. The Lisathi man that stood up earlier is now reluctantly sitting back down, as the older Lisathi addresses one of the women dressed in wizard robes. Olira, can you please continue where you left off before we were interrupted? The old Lisathi says. Yes, Councilman Ezeloff? Yes, Chairman Ezeloff, the woman says. As I've said, none of us have ever experienced anything like this before. Our magical powers have simply vanished yesterday, and we have no way to bring them back. For some reason, only the women seem to be affected, but even some of our strongest female wizards have been reduced to simple commoners in the course of a day. We've tried many methods to stimulate our magical auras, but none of them seem to work. If this doesn't get fixed, half of our elite wizard troops will be completely useless in the upcoming battle. This is grave news indeed, Azeloff says. The female wizards from our elite troops were a force to be reckoned with. Our highest priority must be to find a way to bring their powers back at all cost. Ha! Araka says from her amulet. You can try all you want. Your women are never getting their magic back. What are you talking about? Ezeloff says. Didn't you find it strange that all of your women lost their powers on the same exact day of the past version of myself made her appearance? Araka says. Of course you didn't, you're morons. Well, let me spell it out for you. The reason why your women were able to cast magic until yesterday was because they were subconsciously linking themselves to female spirits from the magical plane. Since yesterday was obviously the day that I landed, since yesterday was obviously the day when I and all the other female spirits got banished from that plane of existence, their magic will never work anymore. You might as well give them some swords and shields to fight with, because the most you'll be able to get out of those That's the most you'll be able to get out of those troops from now on. You called the other Araka a past version of yourself, Tyreth says. Does this mean that you're coming from the future? Impressive, Tyreth, Araka says. I never knew that you had mastered basic logic at such a young age. I guess that's why the other dragons made you their king. Spare me your insipid humor and answer me this, Tyreth says. Why have you come here? Why were you fighting the Araka from our time? Did you come here to avert some great crisis, or did you simply arrive at this place by pure chance? Actually, we were sent here against our will. We came here to save you from this great threat. Sorry, we came here on vacation. Well, if there's anyone that would like to help influence my decision, now is your chance. I like being a sarcastic asshole, so I'm inclined to go with the last one, but good Smartberry might go with the first one, because, truth and all that. Anyways, it's up to you guys. Y'all have about a minute. Good call, Phoenix Fire Critic. We do love sarcastic assholes. We do. We really do. Yeah, Araka is a bitch. A biatch. A very wicked bee with an itch. A witch with a capital B. Okay. Sorry, we only came here on vacation. I highly doubt that, Tyreth says. Your timing was too perfect. Regardless of your motives, however, we could most definitely use the information you have from the future to our advantage. What kind of information are you looking for, exactly? I ask him. I have a plan which may well be good, which may well be our only real chance of defeating Araka for good, Tyreth says. I've been discussing it with the elite wizard troops since yesterday, after I first warned the High Council that this place might be targeted by Araka soon. Given that you are from the future, I would like to know if you've ever heard of such a plan being used in the past, and if it was successful. In short, there's this large mountain not far from here, which we could use to... I'm gonna stop you right there, Tyreth, Araka says. First of all, the good news is that in our past, you did use this plan on me, and you did manage to successfully trap me in that mountain for a few thousand years. Now, the bad news is that I may have accidentally told the Araka in your world all about your plan, which means that you may well scrap that plan entirely, which is because it's completely useless now. You did what? Tyreth shouts loudly as the magma from his scales erupts like a volcano. Before Araka gets a chance to answer him, a white light suddenly fills our entire area, and once again we are transported back to our world, which is apparently still frozen in time. As we are all looking at the forest around us, the god of time materializes himself out of thin air once more, floating a few dozen feet above the ground in front of us. How did I do this asshole's voice? I don't remember how I did his voice, but I do remember it hurt my throat a lot. I am afraid. No, because he's a dude. I'm afraid that I'm going to have to continue this ritual some other time, the god of time says, since I've already reached my limit for how much time I can gather from a single group. Do not worry. You will have the opportunity to continue this trial from where you left off as soon as the Time Weaver will be sent to give you the prophecy again. I would like to say that you've all performed much better than I expected. You have my sincerest congratulations. Araka says, I told you losers that you gave him exactly what he... And your performance was the greatest of them all, Araka. The god of time interrupts her. What did you just say? Araka asks. I wouldn't have dared to imagine that you would contribute to my ritual out of your own free will, the god of time says. However, your feeling of pure dread on the thought of being completely erased from the existence by the Magium was exactly what I needed for my ritual to be a complete success. I will be looking forward to what you will have in store for me in the trials to come. You son of a... Araka starts to say, but she's cut off by the god of time. Now before I depart, I think I will ask you all to kneel for me one last time, the god of time says. Achievement unlocked. Cutthroat versus God. Guys, I didn't do this path in my playthrough. This is new for me. Kneel! Cutthroat Dave says, making us realize that he's also been transported out of the ritual together with us. Kneel! He steps in front of us so we can see the god closer. Cutthroat Dave kneels before no one, the cutthroat says. You will kneel before your god, or you will face the same treatment that the others faced the last time they defied me, the god of time says. When he hears what the god of time has to say, Cutthroat Dave spits on the ground in front of him in disgust. You are no god, the Cutthroat Dave says. All you are is an ugly-looking, faceless bastard with too big of an ego. Here you are, like every other mage in this tournament. You're just like every other mage in this tournament. You think you can flaunt your magic powers in front of others and expect them... I'm doing his voice wrong. How did I do Cutthroat Dave's voice? You think you can... So bad at voices, I'm sorry guys. You think You think you can just flaunt your magic powers in front of others and expect them to bend to your will? How about you earn your respect instead of acting like it's your birth-given right? You can pretend that you're special all you want, but deep down you'll always know that you are a worthless piece of shit. Just as he was ending his sentence, Cutthroat Dave disappeared from our eyes, and he was replaced by a faint gray smoke that was now slowly raising itself into the air. What did you do to him? Kate asks. He will be spending some extra time in the world from your previous trial as punishment for his transgressions, the God of Time says. If he won't be dead by then, you will surely be meeting him again when you resume your trial. Now, I will repeat myself one last time. Kneel. My friends and I exchange a few looks, but in the end we all choose to stand our ground. Seeing that none of us plan on kneeling, Melindra starts slowly massaging her forehead with her eyes closed out of frustration. Since she knows that no matter what she does, the result will be the same, she decides to stand her ground as well, this time around. Have it your way then, the God of Time says, as a powerful force pushes all of us except the Revenant to the ground in a horizontal position, and then he begins to slowly squash us with the same magical force. As I am being pushed against the soil, I start getting flashbacks of my first ritual, and of my parents begging me to save them while I just stood there and watched with the pitchfork in my hands. A sudden feeling of rage takes hold of me, and for the whole duration of the god's spell, a single thought goes through my head, over and over. I will make him pay. I will make him pay. I will make him pay. While we were being pressed against the ground, the Revenant's eyes suddenly became bright yellow again, and she slowly started walking away from us while gazing into the distance with an empty look in her eyes. Looks like our time is up, the God of Time says. I will be seeing you again soon. Make sure not to get killed in the meantime. Your future contributions to my ritual are highly anticipated. Almost as soon as the god is done talking, he and the Revenant simply disappear, and the world unfreezes itself, making it look almost as if nothing had happened. Now that there is no longer a force pushing us against the ground, we all get up, and we dust ourselves off calmly, without saying anything. Not even a few seconds later, I hear the Revenant's voice coming from the transceiver in my pocket. What happened after I was gone? The Revenant says in a low voice. Did the God of Time pay you any more visits while the time was frozen? No, I say. From our point of view, it has only been a few seconds since you left. What about you? Do you remember anything after you walked away from here? It's mostly just one big blur, the Revenant says. I remember that the people I visited right after you were Azarius and his pupil, but I don't know what happened after that. Alright, I say. Are you going to keep your transceiver channel closed from now on, too? Yes, the Revenant says. I am still being closely monitored, and I don't want to appear more suspicious than I already am. If there's anything urgent, I will call you from my end. Take care. You too, I say, and then the Revenant closes her side of the channel once again. I think we should all take a small break so that we can clear our minds a little, Darren says, with a very tired look on his face. Shall we meet back here in 20 minutes? Yeah, Hadrick says. I could use a break right about now. As everyone goes to find a place where they can be alone for a while, Darren goes to sit on a tree stump and begins to sharpen his blade in order to make himself look busy. Okay, cool. So, I say, as I approach Darren, what exactly are you planning to do after this break? What do you mean? Darren says, as he continues to sharpen his sword, without looking at me. After the break, we'll continue to march towards Allendor, like before. Isn't this what we set out to do when we left Thilius? Of course, I say, but you know very well that this is not what I meant. When I asked what you were planning to do, I was thinking more about the long term. I was thinking about the god of time and the upcoming rituals he's threatening us with. What are you planning to do about those? I don't know, Barry, Darren tells me as he stops sharpening his sword and looks me in the eye. You tell me, because I'm not really seeing an obvious way out of this. The way I see it, all we can do is prepare ourselves the best we can for the best the way I see it, the way I see it, all we can do is prepare ourselves the best we can for the next rituals, and hope that we can pass them like we passed our last trials. Well, I was thinking that we could find a more permanent solution to our problem, I say. Like what? Darren says. Kill the god of time? Barry, be reasonable. We're talking about a literal god here. We have no way... We were having trouble even against a sage not long ago. What do you expect us to do against a god? We are nowhere near powerful enough to challenge him. That's funny, I say, because you're nowhere near as powerful as Eden either, and yet you kept challenging him again and again every time we've met. That's different, Darren says. Despite his power, Eden is still a mage. We've all fought mages before. Some of them were more powerful than others, but you still have a general idea of what to expect when fighting one. But to challenge a god? Barry. Neither you nor I have even the slightest bit of experience in dealing with something like this. Then maybe we should ask someone who does, I say. Before Darren gets to say anything else, I start walking towards Aluna, who is apparently having a discussion with Araka. As I get closer to them, the two of them interrupt their conversation, waiting to see what I want. Araka, I have a question to ask of you, I say, with a very serious tone in my voice. Sure, Araka says. Fire away. How do you kill a god? I ask her calmly. There's a short pause after I ask my question, during which neither of us say anything. You want me to tell you how you can kill a god? Araka says, as she seems to be recovering from the shock of what I've just asked her. She waits for a few more seconds to try and figure out if I'm joking or not, and when she finally understands that I'm serious, she starts to laugh. She laughs, and she laughs as loud as she can, with all three of her voices, and it doesn't look like she's planning to stop anytime soon. However, I am not upset. This isn't one of her usual mocking laughs. This laughter is one of excitement. She is enjoying this. Araka's laugh manages to grab the attention of everyone in the area, and now they're all looking at us curiously. I pay them no mind, and I keep waiting patiently for Araka to stop laughing. When she finally falls silent, she waits for a few more seconds, and then she gives me her answer. "Barry, my boy," Araka says, "I thought you'd never ask." End of Book 2. There. Okay. This marks the end of the second Magium book. The third book has been completed and is ready to unlock with the remaining books, but the remaining books will be released chapter by chapter as I write them. The main series will likely have 5 books in total. If you already paid to unlock the third book, you can tap the button below to proceed. Otherwise, you will need to complete 25 achievements from the second book in order to unlock the third one. You can see how many more achievements you need to complete the achievements menu. In the achievements menu. I would also like to add that I strongly suggest you save the game now on a save slot you won't overwrite if you're planning to start completing achievements, since otherwise you'll lose the progress of your current playthrough, and you'll have to finish the game again in order to be able to progress in the next book. You should also be careful not to uninstall the game, since the next books will be uploaded within the same app. And if you uninstall the game, all your local progress, including your achievements, will be lost. Thank you for playing. P.S. If you enjoy the game, blah blah blah. How many achievements? 18, we need 25. It looks like we're gonna be going achievement hunting. I'll have to do research on these, I think. Some of these we just straight up can't get. Return to game. Oh. And I'm also going to save here. Oh no, I need to end. Cool. Okay. Transfer achievements to cloud. Transfer local saves. I don't remember which ones I used, so we're just gonna go with, I think there's 2 on the next page. Just gonna keep going. I'm gonna go to 15, because why not? Okay. And yeah. Okay, well, thank you everyone so much for participating and listening in. By the way, Azafel, hi. I appreciate you guys being here so much. Last time we did this, I mean, I'm happy to support the author by paying for unlocking the next book, but also I feel like it's fun to try and go achievement hunting. Turning things green is fun. Yeah, exactly. I get paranoid because when I first started doing these Magium streams, the app kept crashing and deleting my saves and it wouldn't like transfer them. So now I just, yeah. Oh, well, I'm glad that you were able to get here now and say hi. I appreciate you being here. Sorry you weren't able to get here earlier. I don't normally raid out during Magium streams because I know that people are asleep and I don't want to like go to some place that's rowdy and wake them up. So I'm probably just gonna end, which feels weird now that I've gotten in the habit of raiding out. So I'm gonna end the recording here now.